Hello artists and graphic designers, my name is Craig Davidiuk and I'm the owner of Ultimate Promotions, and it turns out I've designed a few pins in my time. So I wanted to share a couple of techniques and concepts with you to help you in the design of your custom lapel pin. So here we have another pin that looks like it's destined for Etsy or an artist, which is very popular right now, which makes me really happy. Pins are a great art form to experiment with. So right off the bat, I've opened up this person's submitted art, and I'm going to turn on the rulers because the one thing I want to point out is how scaling works. It's very important. Okay, so this pin is set up on a 1-inch canvas by roughly 3/4 of an inch. So the artist has requested a 3/4 inch size, but here's the thing. Our measurements are determined on the widest measurement. So if I reduce this to 3/4 inch, it's going to get smaller even yet. So I would suggest not doing that. But anyway, we'll work with that in a second. I'll just show you what I'll do here is I'll take it over our template page where we do our work, and we'll paste it on here. So now we're on 8.5, 11 page. You can see how relatively small this image is. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's do's and don'ts for making things work at small sizes. So the thing to realize with art for lapel pins is you need a boundary to put the paint in. Okay, so all of these pins are hand painted with a clear epoxy, and it's used. Syringes are used to push the paint into these areas. So it starts as liquid, ends up as a hardened enamel. Okay, so you notice here's another example of an Etsy designer, and we have a border all the way around the pin. So that's the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a border for this pin. Unfortunately, artists, it's very, very difficult for me to not touch your art at all prior to going to production. I respect the work you put into it. Sometimes you create things that are difficult to administer in the manufacturing process, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is the little gotchas that keep coming up that we have to fix. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a border on this, so I'm going to copy this and paste it. The border is always raised metal, so the way we need to look at this is putting a silver stroke on it because the artist has requested nickel plate. Nickel is another word for silver, but it's not silver. All right, so here we go. We can now bring this back over here and layer it on top of this image, just nice like that. Right now I've got I've got set up as a 1-point stroke. I could probably drop that down to 0.75 and that'll still work fine. Now when we do this, we have to be careful to line up perfectly over top because sometimes you need to have an extraneous outline in addition to your art. Whoops, so let's try and make this line up better here. Alright, so that's a lot better. All the edges are nice and tight and clean. Now what that's done in the process is it's changed some of the dynamics of the other art here. So these little lines of detail, they need to be raised metal as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of those the same color gray as this one. Oops, we got to make this a stroke, not a fill. Okay, and we'll make the stroke a little bit smaller, let's say 0.5. And then we'll copy the styles from this one as well. Okay, so with the emergence of the outline, it's kind of changed things a little bit for this design. So we'll have to get feedback on the artist if that's okay, or allow her to edit this copy if we need to. Continue on with the filling in of our colored lines here, making them raised metal so they make a nice little accent detail for your design. Right. And the other thing to realize is that we're looking at something that is probably 500 or 600 times scale. So when we're dealing with an area this size, we're talking millimeters, not even a millimeter. So we need to allow space for the paint to flow around. So I'm just going to move this down a tiny bit and space this out. Okay, so this is looking good. We got one more little detail line to deal with here, and then we can move on to the next thing. All right, so the next thing is, now this here is a white area, so we're going to color that with white enamel. The trick is that these lines are specced as black. They're too small to hold color, all right? So the general guideline I use is on our template here. I have a little, this shows you this minimum size for color fill, all right? So we can take these little tools down here. So you have to remember, once again, someone's sticking a liquid-filled syringe into all these areas and injecting them with color. All right, so this little red dot, for example, might fall under the minimum. It's just barely the right size. So if I take this little tiny 1 millimeter circle, and artists, you can do this too. Just draw a 1 millimeter circle and put it on your template while you're drawing and see how it pans out. So the pin specs gods have told me that this little red dot is okay. Now for these detail lines, it probably isn't going to be okay, but once again, we'll get to that in a second. I will put a stroke on here of 0.5. So we can hold color once again, because this needs a barrier to hold between the metal boundary and the black paint. And then these we're going to fill with nickel plate as well, so they'll look gray. There we are. We're filling these little detail areas. So once again, it kind of changes up the look of the art. So I'm going to move this like just a tiny millimeter up above. It looks like I'm moving it a lot, artists, but I'm not. Remember, I'm in at about 400 or 500% scale. So yeah, apologies if I have to edit your art, but this is absolutely necessary for the process, unless you're doing a printed pin. All right, so in this case, she's asked for a soft enamel pin, which is kind of a high quality, medium price type of product. So this is the challenge. We can silkscreen these on. It adds an extra cost, and it changes the look of the pin, and I think that's how we would probably end up handling this. But again, the art is so small, so here we are at 100%. So my question to you is, if you're looking at this in someone's lapel, or how are we going to handle this? White is challenging with a lot of fill colors, because in this case we have white and nickel. It just doesn't pop. So in this case, I'm going to silk screen these on here, and then handle it that way. So in essence, we have a 3-color enamel pin with a black silk screen, which adds a setup charge and a run charge. But again, it's very reasonable, and it helps us get around some of these issues where you need lines to look a certain way, but our process is working against you. So let's just keep going here. Okay, so as I alluded to before, the artist asked for a 0.75 inch pin. However, the art that was sent to us is 1 inch wide. So I'm going to leave it as is. It's gonna be a 1 inch pin, but it's 0.75 high. So we always sell by the longest measurement. And then here's the other thing that often causes people grief is we'll take this and we'll enlarge it for you. And you'll look at this and go, oh, well, this isn't what I want at all. You've changed my art and you've done all this stuff to it. But this is the challenge, is we need to find a balance between our production process and your creativity. So hopefully I've bridged the gap between this and given you some insight into how to deal with some of these art issues when doing really creative stuff. If you have any questions at all, please email me at craig@ultimatepromotions.biz, and I'll answer any art-related question you have, or anything in that matter. Thanks for your time, and I hope this is helpful.